Hello and welcome to another video. So today we are checking out a buff ForestCraft, focusing on, of course, the Wings of Mercy tactic. There are a couple of variations of this. I've seen some that are similar but are more Evo based. I've seen some that focus on just other kinds of return mechanics and other kind of issues that they run through, but this one in particular is mostly focused on the fairy spam with things like Okami as a up leg on it. I do only run 2 wings only because I only have 2 right now and I don't want to put the investment into a third one yet. But if I was going to run a third one, I would drop Okami down to 1, making Okami basically a guaranteed 1 pull, which would be fine, and then everything else would be pretty balanced out overall. So we are going to get right into this and check this deck out. So kicking us off for the first game, we are up against a Dragoncraft, of which I've seen a few lately, although it seems like Portal is really kicking into high gear, on the ladder at least. I found a lot of Portal matches over my time playing, and they're not favourable for this deck in any way, shape or form normally. Your best matches are usually against Dragon and Rune typically, as they have the least likely to clear you off completely all the time every turn, where you can keep restocking. This deck though does fairly well if you can get wings early, which is great. Of course, since we can't use wings yet, I decided to set up a defensive play. And a fairy to really work off that. Although our opponent did set up a really nice board, and I don't really have a lot of ways to do anything against it. But I do believe I make the wrong trade here. Ideally, I should have traded into the 2-3, mainly because their Evo will gain them a orb, and that's a bad thing for us. I could have stopped them gaining this play point orb and left them with just the other big guys, so I definitely made that error. But turn 5 looks promising with Nature's Guidance. Of course, I do want to attack first. I don't want to miss out on the chance to bounce a card back and buff it up. And we get a fairly decent chance also to go for the fairy plays. Pretty much as much as we want here. I decided to throw May. We get an okay hit. It does balance us out nicely. Although I do have to use the Evo if I want to get over the 2-2, which not the best thing, but we've got an okay hand and we're working well off what we've got. So we should be able to maintain our board pretty easily now going forward. Although this 7-3 is not something I want to have to deal with, but when you don't have a choice, you kind of have to. On the bright side, this shouldn't be too difficult, and we should be able to cancel out its turn with Fairy's Yawn, which is actually a really strategic card. I find that if I can use Fairy Yawn correctly most of the time, it's a very powerful card. And May will finally set it to 1, which means with Fairy Yawn blocking its attack, all we need to do is keep the 1-1 up, and we can pretty much trade into it for minimal cost. Although we did lose that, so it's a little disappointing. So I will have to trade something a little higher. And that ruins pretty much any kind of good play that I wanted to make, so that's a little disappointing. At least we have the Okami potential, which is fairly good, although I still have to find a way around all this. So I traded the 2-2, went for the Fairy Whisper, giving me a couple more fairies. Basically this deck focuses on flooding 2-2s all the time as much as possible. Now I decided to take a chance on the Fairy's Yawn, hoping that I can hit 2 of the followers on board here, or at least 1 if I can get this right ping, but fortunately I didn't get a favoured ping there, and I did not get a favoured Fairy's Yawn. We hit the same follower twice. Well, 50-50 odds, so I mean, I had the odds not really in my favour, but it was at least a decent turn. Now I do need a way to take all this out, and you can return amulets with Okami, and if I had have made the what I probably would have considered the correct play, I probably should have done that and returned the amulet so I could potentially replay it here, but at the same time, it might not have been the right choice. Since right now I can go for a fairy and buff our Okamis further, giving us a fairly decent board state when it comes to damage. Unfortunately, Fairy Yawn did hit the 1-1. That was a little sad. I would have preferred the 5-7 Odin be hit. It would have been a much bigger play then. But at least we bought ourselves a good amount of time. And they can't completely wipe everything here, but they can take out the majority. Fortunately for us, they didn't decide to attack the Okami, which, honestly, worst mistake you can make going up against this deck. If you leave Okami up, odds are I'm going to take advantage of it as much as possible. And I actually get a really good chance to bring Okami back. Plus, since most of our fairies are 2/2s, we can keep flooding the board, take advantage of May. Plus, we have the ward up. And since they're top decking, it's really no contest there. They would have needed a really good storm play probably to get over us, and that obviously wasn't going to be enough, especially since they knew we had Okami in hand. And we also ended up with Miracle, which was going to guarantee us lethal at that point. For our following matchup, we are playing against Runecraft. A couple of days from now, I've actually got a Mecha Rune that should go up. That'll be a lot of fun. Well, not too much fun, because they didn't really gain anything, but at the same time, since they didn't lose anything in the expansion, they've still been able to pretty much dominate the top of the ladder as a very powerful deck. And I've found right now, compared to what it was like, it's much better to play, just because of the meta shift. Because we're not seeing Blood pushed as hard, Portal isn't actually as bad to deal with at the moment. So I've definitely seen Mecha Portal go up, not necessarily down. The only hard match can be Haven, as Haven is pretty counterproductive. But it looks like they're playing a Golem variation of Rune. Definitely not the best. I've played a couple of variations of Golem so far, and really can't get behind the deck other than for just being fun. We're going for a very similar strategy to last time. This time, though, without the buff, since we don't have it to play out yet. If we can draw it, that would be ideal, but for right now, all we can do is try our best to wait it out. Now we fill up our hand. Taking advantage of the 0-cost Wisp is the most important card you could possibly take advantage of a lot of the time. Which is why I like to use it like this. Not that I needed to, I just wanted to have the Wisp out and put it back, pretty much. Plus, it means I got the 2/2 out for 0 cost as well, without having to worry about bouncing my 4/4. Which I still think was definitely the right move. But we do have to now deal with these followers on board. Justice isn't a bad play, although I think I could have done better if I planned it out more. Because all I got really now is a Fairy Yawn and a May play. So we got a 50-50 on the May. We just have to make sure we hit the 5-3 ideally, and we missed. But Fairy Yawn at least will lock them down anyway, giving us probably another chance next turn. That's all we can really hope for at this point. The Solomon play is interesting, although it feels a little late. Although we did get Fairy's Yawn, so we're a little late in the game as well. At least now we can start taking advantage of those bounces. I decided to take the best option I could come up with, allowing me to keep up my 5-3. And pretty much just go wide with fairies. Unfortunately though, it means Fairy Yawn basically became useless this turn, but I mean, we did get a fairly decent state up on the board, and that's what was really important to me. Plus, forcing the Evo here means they are out of Evos for now, and that should buy us at least some time. The only real problem will be the Golems if they come down. And unfortunately, this hand is not good. And we were pretty much forced to waste an Evo if we wanted to go up against this fairly. On the bright side though, we can pretty much take advantage of whatever we want here. Although I probably should have played a card, one of those fairies first, then went for the Eve so I get it 1 cost. Very small misplay, but could make all the difference in the long run. And it's really going to come down to our next draw on whether we can actually take advantage of May at all, if we can. But it looks like our opponent did a fairly decent job of wiping us out. And we don't really have any choice but to just flood as much as we can, as often as we can. Try and keep our board up so we can keep dealing damage and putting pressure down. Or in case they play something pretty devastating, like a ward that we would have to deal with. That's a pretty good sign though, when they're wasting those face damage potential on other cards. There's a lot of removal. And there's Okami. That's going to be pretty much our big hitter right now for this game, since we can start bouncing these back to replay and boosting up our followers even further, because the Okamis do gain points for everything that is put back in. Plus, we get the extra stats as well, so that's always a nice combination on the fairies. So this is looking like a very good board. And we pretty much baited out most of the removal now, I think. There isn't a lot of removal they could have left that could be too devastating. Although they're definitely pushing hard against me, so that's not good. And that could have been really dangerous. Fortunately for us, that actually played pretty well there. And getting Nature's Guidance is definitely going to help us out with that bounce. Oh, Miracle of Love. That's a perfect draw off that top. I think we still could have won without it using the other cards, because we would have got enough buffs that it wouldn't have made much difference to us here. But this definitely helped. And did allow us to pretty easily close that out. So overall, while this Forest deck is very hit or miss sometimes, if you don't get the Wing of Mercy into play early on, it can be very hard to make a comeback, and it's very match dependent. Like I said, I found Portal really hard, and it seems to be a lot of Portal floating around. Haven can be a real nightmare if you play this deck and don't get a really good early start. Otherwise, it's definitely in that middle run for me, as it's got some potential to it as it is right now. But I definitely would check out something like Evolve if I was looking for more competitive variation of Forest. So we may check that out in future. If you guys did enjoy this video and want to check out the deck, link will be in the description below. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Until next time, guys, see ya.